For those of you who haven't made a film, you can imagine how much is involved. So I think if we could have another round of applause for these beautiful filmmakers. So I'm going to begin asking questions, but we really would invite you to ask questions as well. I'll be turning it to you. It is a very tight schedule, so we really encourage everybody to meet the filmmakers in the hall during their breaks, and any time that the festival, they'll be glad to help to talk to you. This is all about networking. And I should say that I was a juror and watched these films several times, just like all the jurors over the course of this year. So thank you for sharing that with us. So David, we'll go in the order that the films were presented. Broken Courage, how did this all come about?
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming, and Brenda, thank you for this and for the invite. Vanish and everyone who's involved in the production of the festival. It's a real honor and privilege to be here. It's a long story. Anyone who's made a film knows how incremental it really is, and the seed for it was planted probably in 2004, believe it or not, when I first met Soon at a war museum in Siem Reap in Cambodia, where all the temples are, Angkor Wat. And 10 years after that, talk about redefining serendipity, in 2014, I met him again. I was there on an international project, and I said, I wonder if this man is still working at that war museum. And I ended up in a tuk-tuk, didn't know exactly where I was going, and sun was going down, mosquitoes were coming out, and I walked into this museum, and this man, I could see his profile, and I thought it was him. As soon as our faces met, I knew instantly that it was him. And so we began recording then in 2014, and then about 4.5 years of shooting. It's a long way away, Cambodia. I'm from Toronto, Canada. And so it took a while to shoot, and then of course COVID hit, and so we did some of the editing and shooting during, but it's a very long story. It's kind of a metaphor for the film, it seems to me. You know, you step into your future, you only understand it when you look back. So yeah, long project. And if you don't get a chance to chat, I'd love to chat with you about it. I know all the filmmakers here would, that's kind of why we're here. But BrokenCourageTheMovie.com is the website to find out more about it. Thanks for the question.
So another question I had is, what were you hoping to achieve by telling the story? It was from 75 to 79, 4 years. Why now? What was it?
So the film is, what was I hoping to achieve? I'm not sure in some respects, and I think that's part of the journey, part of the whole process. I'm not so interested in maybe what you believe today, right now. I'm more interested in what you become, I guess, to sort of lean into my existential roots, I suppose. And I think Soon very much leans into that as well. It's kind of that, he talks about that one step by step, and if you notice, pretty much the whole film, he's moving. He's on a journey, and we all are really, aren't we, I think. And so what's happening is that the film is, I've made some connections with the international campaign to ban landmines, and the film seems to be taking on a new life of kind of its own, and it's becoming about disarmament, it's becoming about UXO, or unexploded ordnance, and we're hoping to take the film to Geneva to play at an anti-landmine summit in about 4 weeks, and we're still sorting out some details, not sure it's going to happen. That was totally unexpected. But originally, Richard Wagamese, a famous Canadian Indigenous writer, said that stories are meant to heal. And I think, Brenda, that was what I was hoping for. And I've seen a lot of alignment in my own life with some of Soon's story, and I hope you here too see some of those connections in your own lives as well, because I think we're all kind of trying to find our way back home in one way or another. Melissa's so wonderful, and she we'd already been shooting for a couple of years before we were even introduced, so a real serendipitous surprise along the way, that's for sure.
Fabian, you're the director.
Yes.
One of the things that struck me when I watched it was there was so much to that character. You took on a very ambitious project for a person that has a place in history. How did you break it down into 3 minutes?
Yeah, I have a bit of a weird working method. So my vision as a filmmaker is to start is that you have to have good sets, good actors, and good sound. Mm-hmm. So that's where I always start, and from that point I start on building, something out of a movie. And I wanted to tell a story about a historical person, so I was just looking for who's interesting, so I had a couple of ideas, but eventually it became Belle Starr because it's one of the most popular female outlaws, and an outlaw person is a criminal, so it's a bit weird, but we all know, like, for some reason, outlaws are cool, but they do bad things and stuff. So, I just like to be creative and to tell a story creative so that the audience has a good experience. So, is that a good answer to your question?
Yes, that's a wonderful answer. Yeah. I'm going to ask the audience as well because time's moving along, so is there anyone that would like to ask a question of either of these individuals? Yes. I think do we have a microphone? Okay. There's two here. They have one and I have one. So maybe yeah, okay, and if I have to, I'll interpret it.
Good morning, everyone, and I just wanted to say that the broken courage, there's so much, I just want to focus on the emotions and the personality of Soon, and there's so much courage there and bravery, at the same time a lot of sadness and pain. Mm-hmm. So how were you able to connect with him filming that film?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question, and I think is essential to making a good film and to telling a good story. So for me, to say that our relationship was relational, as a philosopher, I would say that's a trivial truth. That's kind of meaningless. It means nothing. It was relational, but it really was. And we connected, and from the moment that 10 years later our faces met, and I remembered that it was soon. I had met him, we sat on a piece of wood together at the War Museum, and he told me his story. And we connected for about 75 minutes, and I was still smoking back then, so we were able to share that, a couple of Marlboro Lights back and forth, and he was drinking beer. And he was telling me his story, and he was talking about this thing called the Ottawa Treaty that I'd never heard of before, which is a landmine treaty that was signed in the late 90s, Nobel Prize, etc. Long story. And we connected face to face, if that makes any sense. So it was rooted in authenticity. He told me his story, I told him mine, and that's kind of where the seed was really planted. And then 10 years later, this serendipitous meeting again, and that's when I said, I think I need to tell this man's story. And I honestly didn't know how I was going to pull that off. And I think most of the filmmakers in the room, and Fabian, I would think you would agree, I don't know where we're going to find the money for this. I don't know I don't have the talent to do this, but the world needs to hear this story. And that's kind of, so it started in relationship. It started in the question, and that he was transparent with me, and I tried to respond in kind. I hope that makes sense.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, David, one of the things that struck me in Film Broken Courage was this idea of karma, and the thought that maybe the people that suffered during the Pol-Pot regime, this was karma. And for me, that's very counterintuitive, but I'm not as in tune with the culture there. And I'm just wondering, is that very prevalent? Is that a prevalent thought in Cambodia today as a way to rationalize this, as a way to deal with what happened?
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason why we brought the monk into the story as well near the end, and those scenes where Soon is sitting down with the monk and they're having that conversation about karma. And I think the film starts with Soon asking questions about karma, and it kind of comes full circle in him saying, I'm not really sure karma works this way. And I think that's kind of what I've learned I've worked in Cambodia now for about 25 years, and we really tried to embed and listen. And I think like many of us, we try to rationalize our misbehavior, the way we sweep things under the carpet. I mean, culturally, you don't sweep things under the carpet in Cambodia, you do other things instead. And I think that karma has become, like Christianity, like Islam and so on, it becomes a way of justifying what we're actually doing. It doesn't have to be that, but it can become that. And I think Soon's journey is, how do I not let that happen? So how do I let my faith, how do I let my Buddhism, my Christianity, my whatever it is, get me to a better, more hopeful, more compassionate, more loving place? And even though he's a Khmer Rouge soldier, which is difficult in that culture if you know anything about the history, and I really hope you'll dig a little bit more into what happened in Cambodia, because it was 75 to 79, 3.5 years, but it's a much, much longer history than that. So I hope that helps a little bit with that question, but thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I was actually wondering about what you just said, like the sensitivity of him being a soldier, ex-soldier, and at some point in S21, there's the mechanic with all survivors. And I was wondering, how did you feel about this and deal with this? Because you're highlighting two sides of the story. Of course, it's an evolution. But I can imagine it's also quite difficult to have different people who are on different sides and have to manage that and have to have like an open conversation and understanding for each person's reasons and circumstances.
Yeah, thank you. If I understand your question correctly, it's very complicated, it's very layered, and it's very contextual. And every village around the country deals with this in a different way. And so one of the things at the Cambodia, it premiered in Cambodia in 2023 at the Cambodian International Film Festival, and I was very concerned. I was a mess, full house. I didn't know how was this film by this Western filmmaker going to be perceived, and were they going to be upset with me for focusing on a killer, basically, but a child soldier, nevertheless, right? So incredibly forgiving, and I think this connects to the question on karma as well, Andrea. The idea that we were all in this together, and we've got to figure this out. There were very few revenge killings, actually, in Cambodia in 1980 and on, in response. Other places around the world, World War II and so on, Ukraine over the years, there have been some horrific revenge killings when wars end, but not so much in Cambodia, which I think is fascinating. So it's, it's very difficult, but I thought we might get criticized for focusing on a killer, but I actually was told by a psychotherapist that she felt in Toronto, we did have some experts that we had interviewed. We purposely kept them out of the film, actually. That was a decision I made along the way because we wanted Soon, Melissa, and Silong to tell the story themselves. But she thought that we might be maybe onto something from a trauma recovery perspective because we're looking through the eyes of completely the opposite side. So I don't know if that's where you were going with the question or not, but yeah, so I'd love to chat with you more about that because it's a fascinating thing. Thank you.
And that's a segue into a break. Thank you very much to both Fabian and you, Dave, for coming here and sharing.
Thank you for coming out this morning. It's an early start.
So we'll take, I think we're resuming at 11:15? 11:30? Okay. See you all again. Thank you.